Good morning.
Hi, thanks, Ben. As you said, my name's Andrew Cowan. I'm the co-founder of Expedition Zero, and we're on a mission to, where I can stand, where you can see the screen. So we're on a mission to revolutionize the sailing industry, the yachting industry, by building the world's first fleet of net zero adventure sailing yachts. And of course, many people today want to get into adventure, want to go on adventure travel, tour around the world. There's about $500 billion a year spent by us all collectively on adventure tourism. And of course, a lot of that is hiking and climbing and things, but increasingly as well, much of that money being spent by people wanting to go and explore the world's oceans. And why not? There's a huge, fantastic world out there to explore. And this is a market that we know very well. 5 years ago, we founded a business called Wavy Sail Ocean Adventures. And we take small groups of people out on big ocean adventures led by the world's most experienced skippers. We travel all around the world, and we have a lot of fun taking people from some of whom have no experience, some of whom have a lot of experience, out on sailing adventures. And here's a little snippet of what we do with Wavy Sail. With sound. So this is Wavy Sail. Of course, we're very proud of this business. As I said, we've been running it for 5 years. We've won a number of awards. Last year, we won UK's Best Adventure Sailing Tour Operator Award. We're nominated as well this year for a National Tourism Award in Scotland for the adventures we run out of Scotland. So that's all fantastic. However, what we started to think about as a team was, what is the environmental impact of our sailing operations? We take people on these amazing trips. They want to be connected with nature, but how sustainable is sailing actually? And there's a question there. So I don't know, Ben, maybe you have an idea. I mean, anyone want to take a guess at what a number of kilograms of CO2 carbon emissions that a 10-day sailing holiday would typically have?
So if we're just working on purely the people on board and the boat, it's going to be probably around about 200-ish.
200 kilos? You'd think so, right? I mean, it's a sailing boat. We take people sailing as much as we can. One of the things that I would say in terms of this calculation, very hard, is that no methodology actually exists in the industry to measure the sailing operations, environmental impact of sailing operations. So we actually created a methodology with our colleagues at Marine Shift 360. We measure fossil fuel consumption, we measure the marina services that we use, food consumption on board, etc. The actual CO2 footprint of a 10-day sailing trip is a ton of CO2. So to put that in context, that's the same as a family-sized car's CO2 footprint for a year.
So you were basically saying that I was 80% out then?
Everyone thinks sailing is sustainable. Now, of course, we want to take people on amazing trips and we want to encourage people to sail, but we also want to do it in a sustainable and responsible way. So this, first of all, was quite surprising to us, and we've got lots of plans in place on how we reduce that environmental impact. But then, of course, we realized that this only really touches the tip of the iceberg, right? So most of the yachts that we're sailing in today are built of fiberglass, steel, aluminium maybe. And these are all very, very polluting materials to build with. If you build a fiberglass 70-foot expedition sailing yacht, you're creating a significant amount of waste. Even if you build it in Europe, if you build it in China, let's not even talk about it. And then there's the end of life of these boats. There are 24,000 abandoned yachts lying on our beaches around Europe alone. Go to any beach, any marina, you'll see the boats hanging around. No one knows what to do with them. And we felt that as a sailing business, we couldn't really live with that. We want to take people out on adventures. We don't want to be polluting the planet as we're doing it. And so we set up Expedition Zero with a very ambitious mission, you might say. The mission is to build the world's first fleet of sailing vessels specifically designed for commercial adventure sailing. And these vessels will have a 90% reduction in their overall life cycle impact. So from production, operation, and end of life. So a really significant new benchmark that will demonstrate how sustainable sailing needs to be as we go forward. And the yachts will be purpose designed for commercial use as well. These are not for residential use, recreational use. They are commercial adventure sailing vessels designed to go and take people on amazing adventures. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those adventures in a minute. Fantastic as a marine research platform. So a lot of marine research, so University of Portsmouth and Southampton doing lots of work in marine research. And what better platform to go and do that research on than a sailing vessel, a net zero sailing vessel, and indeed marine filming and storytelling. Lots of marine documentaries being made today in the world. And whilst we want to encourage as many people as possible to come sailing on our vessels, also the ability to take those stories of the ocean and bring them to life into people's homes is really important. And we've been getting a lot of support for this mission as well, some notable ambassadors, and I'm very proud today to announce a new collaboration that we're just announcing today with just such an explorer.
Hello, my name is Steve Batchell, and I'm very excited to be announcing a collaboration with Expedition Zero. So this is a sensational concept that aims to take the idea of a boat and make both its creation, its locomotion, and its future disposal carbon neutral, as Neil was down close to it. Using the latest technology, the latest materials, this is an astounding concept for creative boat that could effectively span the planet with no cost for that same glorious blue world. So I'm very excited to see what the future holds, and massive, massive good luck to Expedition Zero.
So that's Steve Batchell. I don't know if he's known to everyone here, but he's quite well known. He's a multi-BAFTA award-winning filmmaker, a whole series of children's TV programs for the BBC, and a whole raft of documentaries, as well as being an ambassador for the Scouts. So we're really excited with that collaboration, and our yachts will be used to support his films that he's got coming up.
So I believe it's Norbert who's going to explain to us a bit more about the materials and technologies. Yeah?
Absolutely. Over to Norbert.
And how on earth do you get down to 90% reduction in environmental impact?
You can cut it, yeah.
You're in charge of the clicker. Thank you, Norbert.
Thanks a lot for inviting me to the Southampton Boat Show. I'm really happy to be here and got the option after 15 years of development to tell you a little bit about material what you surely not will know because it's not commercialized in the nautical industry at the moment. What will be one of the main parts why Andrew can promise you that 90% of emission will be spared is first of all the building material. Building material, we're talking about mineral fiber. What is mineral fiber? Easy explained. It's melted rocks to a recipe from these rocks. Same as you do carbon or glass fiber tissues. You make a tissue, you make a UD, you make a webbing, and then you use it in connection with bio-based epoxy to laminate a hull, a deck, or other parts for a boat body. The core material, because we're talking about light constructions, modern, light, future-pointing construction, is a plantain-grown balsa wood or peat form material. Both of them is fully recyclable, and especially the balsa, which grows in Ecuador, is a closed circle, means cradle-to-cradle production, and that means that it's really CO2 neutral. Now where we have the boat body with these materials, you will maybe ask yourself, why is it necessary to use a mineral fiber? Mineral fiber is in our Mother Earth everywhere where you look in the outer skin of our Earth. That means it's natural product, which is first of all completely UV resistant. Second of all, hydrophobe, that means it takes no humidity. Third of all, it has a very hard surface. And the fourth part is that if you mix it up to a recipe, you can create tissues, you can create a material which can be very flexible and can take a lot of shock impact. But you can also mix up a material which is really stiff or very red. And therefore, you have the option to optimize your construction regarding the necessities of your product. In this case, a vessel which, for example, goes to the Northwest Passage. What will happen there? Maybe Jim, if he skippers the boat, will have ice collision. That means you need a material which can take a lot of impact, shock impact. But at the same time, you need a boat which is very light, because in the Northwest Passage, you have long periods with just very, very light winds. So the boat has to sail, because we want to be completely sustainable, means also using only energy which is renewable. No fossil fuels, no gas oil, no gasoline, no gas. So that means all these attributes we can reach if we build a vessel which is modern, designed in the lines, means which sails very easy, which is of course very safe for regions like the Northwest Passage or the Deep South or Argentina or Chile, and which has the performance to be very efficient in using energy. Doesn't matter if it's for hot water, if it's for the pantry, or if it's for electrical engines. And that is the next point. Power comes only from wind, sun, or water. And of course, engines will be electric engines. Pantry will run with induction. All these things are focused on renewable energy.
Fantastic. Do you want to give Ben that sample of mineral fiber? Ben, try and break it. Do your best.
Here I go.
You can jump on it.
This is going to be embarrassing. Okay.
Damage the lectern there.
Okay, it's not even flexing, and I'm looking at the thickness of it. That's nuts.
It's 0.2 mm.
Yeah, absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Absolutely nuts.
And just to complete that part, when we talk about new material, we talk about new material in the nautism, because in the car industry, in the aeronautic, this material, or also at the military applications, is for years and years in use. So we know really that it works, and now we will try to bring it to the nautic.
I'm worried that we're going to get a bill from the Southampton Yacht
Don't
because we
worry
damaged
about
their
that.
lectern.
I wasn't expecting to do that. However, I have got one of my surveying hammers in the back. I'll give it a thump with that.
Cool.
So where are we up to on the planning of this between, I think it's Jim at this point we're going to bring in, is it?
Yeah, so, or maybe Jim, do you want to just talk about the operation of the vessel quickly?
Yeah, so our idea, and Norbert's just gone through some of it, is it's a zero emission. So we're stripping the boats, we're getting rid of the diesel concept. So diesel's now a dirty word for us. And we're going, right, we're going to go for solar, hydro generation and wind power. None of this stuff is new. It's been around for quite a while now. But what we're doing is we're bringing this all together, and we're going to do it because of the fibre that Norbert's using. We've got the technology now to reduce the weight of the yacht, and we're confident that we can install electric propulsion engines that will send power the yacht through the water. But I guess what we've got to look at is how we sell these yachts. When you go on trips or charter a yacht and sort of in the Mediterranean or around the world, we're kind of used to getting to a destination. So it's, you know, we booked a berth somewhere, or we've got a time frame. What we're saying is we're not trying to do anything new. We're going back to the sailing. And what we need to do when on these yachts is we need to sail the yachts, because if we're sailing the yachts, we've got motion going through the water, and that motion will give us wind power and it will give us hydro generation. So it's all about movement through the water. And I know you're sitting there going, well, of course, it's a sailing yacht. Why wouldn't you do that? But it's balancing it out. So even if we were, say, motor sailing, putting a sail up will generate that added sort of power, and we can therefore get in a position where we're almost creating as much power as we're using along the way. Not kind of anyway. But that's the idea. And then solar as well. Solar is advancing so much. So when we don't have any wind and when we're on anchor, we're using the solar panel, and it's charging our batteries. So the traditional concept of having diesel is, with diesel you've got a tank, and it's a finite resource. Once you run out of diesel, it's gone. But what we're doing is with solar, with hydro, with wind, we're saying we've almost got an unlimitless range, okay? Because it's very, very rare. Okay, we talk about dolge and stuff, but it's very rare when you're sailing to have days and days and days of calm. So you're going to have some sort of movement. You're going to have solar. So there's always going to be a way that we can, even if it's trickle charging our batteries, we're just constantly been able to turn the taps on and fill up our tanks. Hypothetically, in this case, we're filling up our batteries. And so now we've got that power to run. And the technology nowadays is getting to the point where this is possible. And it also allows us to, everything's so clever that the system almost does everything by itself. So it knows when to charge, it knows when to top up batteries. And it also can tell you when you're in problems, when you're running out. So that's what we're doing, and it's a really exciting sort of stage for us, because we can bin the diesel. We can get rid of the diesel engine, and we can go to electric propulsion, and it can be done, and that's what we're planning to do.
I was actually just wondering, have you actually talked to the guys on Linus Britannia? Because I interviewed them the other day,
Yeah.
and they're basically cycling everywhere.
Yeah, so we've talked to a number of the guys about the technology. So the materials, of course, we've talked to a number of the performance racing teams. But what I would say is you could either use the lightness and the strength to go and get high performance racing. That's very much a spectator sport, and it's an amazing sport. What we're trying to do is build, I would say, the Land Rover of the seas. You know, it's a functional go-anywhere vessel. We're talking about a 75, 78-foot long adventure sailing yacht, which essentially will be completely self-sufficient. And that is where the weight and strength advantage that we have allows us to go into places which, you know, like the Northwest Passage, very extreme environments, very safely, commercially. And the lightness allows us to get the technology from the battery, the wind, solar power, that allows us to make that a self-sufficient vessel.
Are we going to be talking
Yeah.
more specifically about the Northwest Passage?
Yeah, sure. Let me just share with you a little bit. So a short film just to kind of bring it together in terms of a summary, I guess, of what we're doing. And this also includes a sneaky preview of the yacht that we're going to build. So that's the first time that we'll have shown it anywhere in public. See if you can spot it in the film. So what you see in this film is really our story, more than 15 years, I guess, of development that's led us up to where we are today, from learning how to use mineral fiber, learning how to use that as a material to make for marine use, to build a boat, Norbert and Innovation Yachts, building an Open 60 out of that mineral fiber material, putting all the technology on board. That vessel that you saw there, the very colorful, beautiful yacht, that has done more than 25,000 miles of ocean testing. So we know that the technology works. We know that the environmental impact scores and benchmarking is possible. And then what you saw is the concept phase for the commercial vessel that will come next. So a eventually 78-foot, go anywhere, category 0 yacht that we can sail around the world, taking people on amazing sailing adventures, truly a net zero sailing vessel, not only setting a new benchmark for commercial adventure sailing, but actually, as we would see it, setting a benchmark for the whole yachting industry to follow. That we should no longer be building yachts out of materials that we don't know what to do with those yachts at the end of their life. We should no longer be building yachts out of materials that have a significant environmental impact. And we're going to build a fleet of 15 of those yachts. That's the eventual idea. And rather than us just selling those boats, we'll be leasing them. So it's also a new business model. There are lots of adventure sailing businesses and operators out there around the world. Any of those sailing businesses who want to give their guests and their clients the opportunity to sail on board a high-tech, modern, purpose-built yacht, which is sustainable and environmentally neutral in its impact, they can lease those yachts through Expedition Zero. So a new business model and a new vessel. So what are we doing next? Plans. So you've seen we've built the Open 60, or Norbert, I should say, has built the Open 60 and has successfully tested that 25,000 miles or more over a number of years. The next plan is actually, before we skip straight to the new build, the new class design that Expedition Zero owns, we're building a commercial prototype. And this yacht will be an upcycled yacht, one of those 24,000 abandoned yachts in Europe that no one knows what to do with. We know what to do with one of them at least. So we're taking that yacht, it's a steel-hulled yacht, 72-foot yacht, and we will strip it completely, leaving only the steel hull, rebuilding the whole yacht, using the mineral fiber, using all of the technology and all the design work that we've done for the final series production yacht. And that yacht, we will sail with Wavy Sail, so our sailing business. We lease to Wavy Sail, they will be the launch customer. They will sail that yacht all around the world, and if you want to come and sail on that boat, go to Wavy Sail and you'll be able to book a trip on that vessel if you want to be, have that experience. But what we're also doing is sailing that boat through the Northwest Passage. It's the world's most challenging sea passage. I guess it's the ultimate test of a vessel. This is a go-anywhere yacht. We want it to be in commercial service. And to do that, you have to be able to demonstrate that you can take it anywhere in the world in safety and with confidence. And so we will sail this yacht, the world's first net zero yacht, to sail through the Northwest Passage. And Jim will skipper that trip for us. So Jim, maybe over to you and tell us a bit about the Northwest Passage.
Okay, so Northwest Passage, as Andrew said, it sort of will be probably the toughest thing that I will ever attempt to do. And we've got to recognise that the only reason we can even think about doing it nowadays is because of global warming. It's the effect of global warming on the ice, and the ice is melting, and it's freeing up the passages, so allowing yachts to go through on most years. There's no guarantee to this. Obviously, there is still ice, but it's getting less and less every year, and so the opportunities now for actually completing the passage is becoming more favourable to us. So our route itself, so the Northwest Passage itself is only about 900 nautical miles, but our route will start in Greenland, and then it will finish in Alaska. Okay, so it's going through the Canadian territorial waters. There's a little bit of a hoo-ha about whether they're international or Canadian, but we're going to treat it as a Canadian passage. And we're looking, and our time frame is kind of irrelevant because it is what it is. It's so remote, it's so isolated that we could end up in places for weeks at a time. And look, we've got to be honest, there is a realism about this place. It's not something you do lightly. Although we will do as much as possible to get through the passage, we've got to also say, look, at some point we may have to turn back and try again another year. So we're not doing this lightly. We're not starting from now onwards. Well, at least I've been planning this for years. It's something I've wanted to do since I was a child and first saw a narwhal. And all my sailing career, I've sailed around the world and been to many beautiful places. It's one of the last places that I really want to look at and really want to see. And as a sailor, I think, and most of us, we hear about global warming, we hear about the climate crisis the whole time, and sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. But it's what can I do, what can we do as sailors, and it's exactly this, is we're not going to make it worse. We're not going to do anything that's going to cause any more problems in that area. So we're reducing to zero emissions. Now, there is a caveat on that. We'll probably have to have a generator just for emergencies to be able to top up batteries. But as much as possible, and I'd say 90%, maybe 100%, it will be wind generation, it will be solar, it will be hydro. Okay, so it is a zero emission plan project. And we're going to do this with preparation, obviously. So it's going to be a case of a lead up, lots of passages before the actual attempt at the Northwest Passage to make sure the yacht, the crew, and everyone is ready to attempt this. Okay, to say it's epic, of course it's epic. It's one of the sort of last adventures you can do as a sailor going through. There's very small amount of yachts that have actually completed the passage all the way through. So the passage itself, 900 miles. So you're 1,200 miles from the North Pole, and we're going from the Atlantic to the Pacific as we go through. It's the type of thing that will test you in every single way. So we've got the physicality of it itself. So obviously we're going into a very cold, very isolated environment, and that will have the mental side of it. You're obviously on a yacht. You're in a confined space. There's 8 or 10 of you on board. Okay, so there's a mental toughness to it as well as the physical side of it. And we're talking about quite a long extent of time. So, it could be up to 90 days, the whole passage itself. And at times you will be the only person or vessel in that vicinity for almost, maybe even hundreds of miles. It is so remote. We think of it as the world as such a small place now and everything's accessible, but that isn't true. There are places, Northwest Passage being one of them, where you are so remote and you are completely reliant on yourself, the other people on board, to get yourselves through it. So it really is one of the toughest. It's the Everest of sailing, really. It's one of the toughest things you can do. So this is the proposed route. So it's one of the most well-known routes we're going to take. But again, it changes all the time. So as we're looking at the route, and this is through ice reports, and we'll be constantly looking at weather conditions, ice from other traffic and stuff. This is the sort of planned route, but there are other routes available, and that depends on what's going on in the area at the time. So it takes quite a bit of planning, but this is really the sort of main passage that most people take through the passage. So it starts in Nook, which is in Greenland down here, and it goes all the way through the passage and finishes off in Alaska, in Nome, on the other side. So 3,250 nautical miles in sort of entirety, which, yes, it sounds a lot, but it's sort of, we say approximately 40-day passage. It could be 45, it could be 60, it could be 90 days. It's just, we have no control over what's going on when we do the passage in regards to the ice, the weather conditions, and everything else that's going on. So as we go. Okay, the wildlife there, I mean, it's so abundant. So we know the polar bears, we know the beluga whales, the narwhals, all sorts of other wildlife, seals, etc. I mean, it is just abundant, and it's teeming with the wildlife there. As part of our process, we want to reach out to the local communities there, the Inuit communities, and make sure, A, that we're not affecting their hunting grounds because their life is tough at the moment. They've seen their hunting grounds diminish over the years because of the way the ice is melting. And what we don't want to do is go in there and disrupt it even more. Okay, so we're making sure we're very aware of the wildlife and the local communities. And in regards to our interaction with wildlife, we've got to make sure we don't disturb it as well. So it's always very respectful. We observe and we don't interrupt as much as possible. Okay, so life on board. So it's basically you leave your life behind, you arrive on a yacht, and even though the yacht seems quite large, it very quickly becomes quite an enclosed space. You're sharing a cabin with other people, you're having to deal with other people's foibles and smelly socks and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's really an exercise in respecting other people's spaces and also making sure that you're looking after everyone. Everybody has their bad days, everyone has good days, some people get down, you know, and it's in a space where you're isolated, when you're away from family and friends. You know, as skipper, one of my main jobs in regards to the passage is looking after my crew, making sure, you know, I make sure everyone's having as well as an experience as they can do. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's going to be bad. It's not, of course not. You're going into one of the world's most beautiful places. You're seeing an incredible environment. The wildlife is amazing, but it is physically and mentally challenging. It will take a real stress on you, and you've got to be able to get through it. And that's why part of our planning process will be doing other expeditions beforehand to make sure that people have an idea of what they're going through. So it'd be a constant watch system, so it'd be a constant on and off as we're going through. And this makes sure that we're always on the lookout for anything navigationally challenging. So this could be ice. You know, the ice itself is one of our major challenges, but it's not a well-charted area of the world. So there's some places where charts are pretty poor. Charts can be non-existent. So we need to go almost back to very traditional methods of navigating, lead lines, visually seeing where we're going. And then, you know, if we need to, obviously keeping our speed down to make sure we don't charge into any rocks or anything else. And then tides and currents, again, because it's not such an explored places, your actual cartography and your tidal knowledge and stuff is quite slim, really. And so you've really got to be aware of what's going on and making sure you're doing your research. And you've got historical data from the ice, from the weather, tidal, and all the reports that other yachts are bringing in. So it's really a case of doing your preparation long before you even start planning, and making sure you have as much information. And then as you're on the passage itself, we'll be communicating with meteorologists and other yachts, and you know, you've got research ships in the area, and you've got also some cruise ships, icebreakers. So there's other people that you can sort of rely on for information and up-to-date information which you're going through. And I just can't really explain what it's like to be that long on a voyage. It's an incredible sense of achievement, obviously, as you sort of complete something like this, but also the bonds and the friendship you create with other people, because you are literally relying on a very small group of people for a long length of time, and it really is quite an experience. And sometimes when I finish these sort of expeditions, it's really a great sadness when you're excited to see your family and your friends and stuff, but that sort of, the world almost stops around you. You're just so focused and so concentrated on what you're going on, that it is one of the privileges, I guess, that I have and other people have, of being able to do this type of expedition. And obviously Norwich, I think will know what I'm thinking about. It's not you can leave the world behind, but you just have to focus on what you're doing, and it's all about the present moment and what's going on at the moment. But of course, we'll have satellite communication, so there will be emails and phone calls to home and all of that side of things as we go through. But as an expedition itself, as a challenge, on the water, I don't think you can beat that one, really. I mean, it is in my view, it's the ultimate sailing challenge. Great, there you go.
So, absolutely, thanks, Jim. And so, at the moment, the Northwest Passage, slated for 2026. A lot will depend on us getting the yacht in the water. which we aim to do in 2025. We'll be doing sea trials on the yacht. The cruise, there are 6 places available for guests, for crew. We will also have obviously skipper, which is Jim, but then we have 2 mates on board as well. So quite a big crew for this trip, because it is quite a challenging trip, of course. We'll also have media space as well on board. So we will be capturing some of this trip as well, which in today's world, really important that we'll be able to bring some of this amazing adventure to life, to people all over the world. So there are 6 spaces available. We've already sold a couple, so there's only 4 spaces left. This really is, the trip of a lifetime, I would say. So really, that's sort of where I guess we've got to. We've tried to tell you the whole story between the vision for us to really bring a new benchmark into adventure sailing, to really use new materials, new technologies, to really demonstrate how our industry can catch up, I would say, with where some other sectors have got to in terms of environmental responsibility, and indeed overtake them and set the benchmark for where adventure tourism needs to be, which is where it is a sustainable one, where we are not damaging the places that we take people to view. We've got an incredible new vessel that will be in the water. And what I would say is, if you're an investor sitting in the audience, come and talk to us. We have opportunities for investment for those that might be wishing or interested in joining our team. We also have partnership opportunities as well for sponsors for the yacht. So again, anyone that's interested in that, or if you're in the audience and thinking, the Northwest Passage sounds amazing, go on to wavysail.com and you'll be able to see as well all of the insight and information, much more about the boat, the passage, the planning, be a part of the trip. What I would say is, for those people that join the trip, it's not just about doing the Northwest Passage, if such a thing were possible. We also are taking those people out to Innovation Yachts to see the yacht being built, to go through the sea trials, to really live the whole journey of taking a new concept yacht into the water and being a part of that crew as we launch it and prepare to then ultimately take it through the Northwest Passage.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew and Jim and Norbert. At this point, does anyone have any questions for the team? Well, that's that. I'm going to. Oh, excellent. If not, I've got a couple of things in my head. Let me just put the mic up to you and you just talk normally, yeah?
Yeah. Is there anyone medically qualified in the trip?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the crew, so me, will have gone through training courses. I'm not going to lie, I'm not a doctor or a nurse. And then we'll be looking at getting expedition medical. Might not necessarily be a doctor, but it'll be a paramedic or that person. So yes, there will be a medical practitioner on board.
Yeah, and we are, we're, as Wavy Sail is a really established commercial adventure sailing business, so we're very used to running expeditions and trips, making sure that, of course, we've got all of the right safety and security measures in place. This is a particularly challenging trip, but absolutely. The reason why I say the trip is slated for 2026 is that we will not run this trip unless that boat and the crew are, in our view, 100% ready to go up and attempt the Northwest.
I suppose off the back of that, does the boat then come under MCA coding, or does it have an exemption on that?
No, so it'll be under MCA, be Cat 0. So it'll be coded, and then obviously the special requirements on top of that.
Well, all I was just going to add to it, back to the question, is the fact that under the MCA, the stores that are required for Cat 0 are yay high compared to the little bag that they used to take.
It's very important.
And the training.
And it
So
is
it's a really
very
good
important
question.
for us that this is a yacht that is designed and built for commercial use at that Cat 0 coding, and that's very much in our minds. This is not a one-off boat. Frankly, in sailing, anyone can build a boat and go and sail it all around the world if they want and get sponsors or whatever, great. And that's fine. This is a commercial vessel, and that is very different in terms of the level of norms that we have to respect. And so we're building to that. Go for it, Norm. Sorry.
Maybe one word to the coding. When we designed this boat, we thought that the opposite way around. We do not think so. We hope that nothing happens, but try to be as safe as possible. We say, okay, if you go in these areas, there will be collision with ice. There will be maybe grounding. For example, the swinging keel is not because it's the best performance against the wind, but it's the safest performance to fall dry or to go in a shelter bay and get no problems and continue when the water is back.
I, as a boat builder, was going to ask you about the keel because I noticed there's actually two, and they look like they're two totally separate systems. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because that's quite different to many designs.
Yeah, I mean, the point is if you, like when I was in 2000 in Antarctica to see really the icy shelf, then you design a vessel and say, okay, there will be collision, there will be grounding. So what we have to do, there will be no support immediately, no rescue team 2 minutes later when something happens. So what do you need regarding design and architecture that you can rebuild or save or secure the boat and go back to a harbor? And that is what we tried in 2000, and more or less the experience which I made in 2000, means 24 years ago, and also had during my two Van de Globe competitions. That is what we bring in the 78 foot now, where we say, okay, if Jim or another skipper carries people in these really strange areas of our planet, we should be as safe as possible, and that means design a boat that it can help in problems by themselves with all the equipment and the technical details which are on board.
Yeah, I mean, it looks superb yacht. Any other questions, guys? Because this is a superb project. I can't believe we have no other questions. I'm going to do another one. So we talk about net zero, end of life. At the end of life, how do you, I hate to say, destroy it and put it back for recycling?
That's a good question, and I'm happy that you come back to that. I think we are at the moment worldwide the one and only shipyard which recycles the stuff what we use for building in our shipyard. That means, as you could see by a small laboratory work in the little teaser in the movie, we really also give the client the guarantee that we buy back the material to a common price. Means more or less the same system if you would build a boat in aluminium and you break your boat and you go to somebody who recycles aluminium, they will pay you per kilo, because aluminium is a very value material as a recycled material. We do the same with the fiber, with the core materials. That means you have not only the guarantee that you get a little bit of money instead of paying for the recycling, you also have the guarantee that your material or your boat have a next life cycle when it's back in the shipyard.
That is a first.
It's a world's first, absolutely.
Absolutely. And you need to be shouting about that an awful lot more in our industry.
That's also another point. We still have two small models, and also the LBV 35, that is the catamaran where we got the Ocean Tribute Award in 23, is partly built from recycled material, what we used for the 60-footer, outcuts left over. That means it's really a circle what we demonstrated, and therefore we also got the award.
I mean, I used to build what I call environmentally good boats because they were made of wood and you can just replace the odd plank. But here, you're taking a product and that skin, you're fully recycling that.
Exactly. You can separate it. For example, if you see that material, you can peel the skin. You could use the core material in the same style as before and shred that one for massive monolithic parts, for example. If it would be a mixture laminate, means with multi-layers, you shred it completely, you make stressed areas out of it. You know, you need a drilling hose which has to be reinforced. There are so many applications. It's just a question of the perspective during the design and the architecture.
I'm really on board with what you're doing. Any other questions before I hog the next question? Because I'm going to ask them a really techie question. It's a very thin out. Anyone else? Because I don't want to be seen to be taking all the questions. As a boat builder, head on, if you're fitting a skin fitting through that, we normally talk about removing the core around the skin fitting.
Yeah.
So if you're doing that with that, you're then leaving yourself with something that's micro thin on the outside, but I can see it's incredibly strong. But would you then fill that aperture before you drill through with something, or how would you do it?
Exactly. All the fixing points will be done monolithic. But to come to this, to the thickness of the skin, for example, on the 60-footer, you have 42 mil massive monolithic laminate in the bow area. Because as I said, you will hit ice, you will crash it. The keel part, because it's a canting keel with a maximum load of 173 tons in grounding, has 411 layers of that size. Why? Because it's ISO norm that the hull speed by grounding must be strong enough, and if you recapitulate it, you come to 411 layers with 170 tanks.
I just saw Jim behind you going a massive reassurance there that he's got a boat that he can sail in and exert that leverage. That's a phenomenal amount of load on something, and I don't think people realise that product is that strong. I was expecting to at least flex it, and it didn't want to do that.
I mean, we have stronger ones also. Yeah.
Right, okay. We'll come back next year, we'll talk about those. Are there any other questions for these guys, or shall we wrap that up? Are you happy on that?
We've got a nice little film.
Oh, we got a lovely little film. Okay, let's go for it then. Thank you, Andrew.